On the far edge of the Velnari Dominion, where stars grew sparse and space stretched into endless night, a patrol of sleek black cruisers moved in perfect formation. These ships belonged to the Velnari, a reptilian species whose empire had ruled the galaxy for over 300 years. Their ships were fast, their weapons precise, and their reputation unshakable. No one dared challenge them, especially not from the forgotten corners of space like the Sol Exclusion Zone, a quarantined region marked on every star chart as off-limits. But something strange had happened there. One of the Dominion's remote science outposts, perched on a dead moon near the edge of human space, had vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone. No distress call, no debris, just silence. That kind of silence made even the most seasoned Velnari commanders uneasy. Commander Corvex, a high-ranking officer with scales the color of dried blood and eyes that missed nothing, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Maw. He tapped a claw against the arm of his command chair, staring at the empty patch of space where the outpost should have been. Impossible, he muttered in the guttural tones of his people. Nothing disappears without a trace. Yet it had. After hours of debate in the war room, Cor made a decision few would have expected. He summoned Jalen Briggs, a human. Not a prisoner, not a slave, but a liaison, part of a small experimental program meant to study the few humans still allowed outside their quarantine system. Jalen was young, barely 30, with short brown hair, steady hands, and a quiet way of speaking that the Velnari found oddly calming. He wore a gray uniform with Dominion insignia on the shoulder, a symbol of his unusual status. Briggs, Cor said without turning. You will accompany the scout team to the last known coordinates of Outpost Theta 9. Jalen blinked. Me, sir? You are human. If this involves your people, your presence may prevent misunderstandings. Jalen didn't like the implication that humans were unpredictable, dangerous, or worse. But he kept his thoughts to himself. He'd learned long ago that survival in the Dominion meant silence more than speech. He boarded the Dawn Chaser, a small reconnaissance vessel piloted by Zira Vaughn, a sharp-tongued Velnari scout with emerald green scales and a reputation for never missing a target. She barely acknowledged Jalen as he strapped into the co-pilot seat. You smell like wet stone, she said, her voice dry. And you smell like burnt wiring, Jalen replied evenly. Zira let out a hissing laugh. Maybe you're not useless after all. The ship dropped out of warp near the dead moon. Sensors swept the area, nothing, no energy signatures, no wreckage, just cold rock and vacuum. Jalen leaned forward, studying the readouts. There's a faint distortion in subspace, he said. Like something passed through recently but left a ripple. Zira frowned. Our scans showed nothing. Your scans aren't tuned for human tech signatures, Jalen said quietly. We used to mask our signals during the border skirmishes. Old habits. Zira adjusted the sensors, inputting the frequency range Jalen suggested. A moment later, a blip appeared, faint but real, and massive. What in the void is that? She whispered. On the view screen, a shape emerged from the shadow of the moon. It was a ship, but unlike anything either of them had seen. It was blocky, angular, covered in thick armor plating that looked welded together rather than forged. No smooth curves, no elegant lines, just raw, brutal geometry. Its hull was scarred with burn marks and old impact craters, yet it floated perfectly still, as if waiting. Jalen's breath caught in his throat. That's not one of ours, he said slowly. We don't have ships like that. Zira's claws tightened on the controls. Then whose is it? Jalen didn't answer. He zoomed in on the hull. Faded white letters ran along the side, barely visible under layers of grime and ice. Yoon's Resolute. Below it, a smaller line. Project Ironclad, Earth Defense Fleet. His stomach dropped. Project Ironclad. He'd heard rumors of it back on Earth. Whispers from old military archives, stories told by veterans who'd lived through the last global war. It was supposed to be a myth, a desperate plan from a time when Earth feared invasion from the stars. They'd built warships meant to guard the solar system, armed with weapons so powerful they could level cities. But the project was scrapped, the record sealed. The ships supposedly scrapped or lost, yet here one floated, silent and alone in the middle of Dominion space. Scan it, Zira ordered, her voice tight. The sensors came back with readings that made no sense. The ship's power core was cold but not dead. Its weapon systems were offline yet primed. And its mass. It was far heavier than it should be for its size, as if packed with dense unknown materials. It's broadcasting nothing, Zira said. No comms. No life signs. But it's not derelict. Something's still running inside. Jalen stared at the image on the screen. The Resolute looked ancient yet somehow alive. Like a sleeping beast, we need to report this, Zira said, already opening a channel to the Iron Maw. But before she could speak, the Resolute's hull lights flickered once, twice, then went dark again. A low-frequency hum vibrated through the Dawn Chaser's hull, not loud enough to hear but strong enough to feel in the bones. Jalen's hand went to his comm. Commander Vex, this is Briggs. You need to see this now. Back on the Iron Maw, Core Vex listened in silence. When Jalen finished describing the ship, the commander didn't speak for a long time. Then in a voice colder than space itself, he said, "Do not approach it. Do not attempt contact. Hold position. I am sending reinforcements," but Jalen knew it was already too late. The galaxy had just changed. And it had changed because of a ship that shouldn't exist. As the Dawn Chaser held its distance, the Resolute remained motionless, a ghost from a forgotten war. Yet in the quiet of the void, something inside it stirred. Deep within its armored heart, a single system powered up. A voice, broken and old, whispered through dead speakers no one could hear. Threat detected. Stand by. Jalen didn't know it yet, but humanity's silence was about to end, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news of the strange human warship spread through the Velnari Dominion like fire through dry grass. Within hours, the High Conclave, the ruling council of the Empire, was in emergency session. The chamber, carved from black volcanic stone beneath the capital city of Xylos Prime, echoed with sharp voices and hissing arguments. Some elders demanded the ship be destroyed immediately. Others insisted it be studied. A few whispered that humanity had been hiding its true strength all along. Amid the chaos, two humans stood quietly in a side chamber waiting. Jalen Briggs leaned against a smooth obsidian wall, arms crossed, eyes tired. Beside him, Maya Ruiz tapped her fingers against a datapad, her dark eyes scanning reports that made little sense. She was shorter than Jalen, with curly black hair tied back and a sharp mind that had earned her a place in the Dominion's Xenolinguistics division. Unlike Jalen, who had been chosen for his calm under pressure, Maya had been selected for her ability to understand dead languages and old human codes. "You think they'll let us near it?" she asked, not looking up. "They have to," Jalen said. "We're the only ones who might understand what it is." Maya finally glanced at him. "Or they'll decide we're part of the threat and lock us in a cell." Before Jalen could answer, the chamber doors slid open. Commander Corvex entered, his scales dull with stress. "The Conclave has spoken," he said without preamble. "You will board the vessel. You will determine its origin, purpose, and whether it poses a danger. You have 6 hours," Jalen nodded. "What about weapons?" "You will carry none," Cor said firmly. "The ship's systems may react to aggression. And Briggs, do not touch anything unless you are certain." They were shuttled back to the dead moon in a heavily shielded transport. The Resolute still hung in silence, its massive form casting a long shadow over the barren surface. This time a full security cordon surrounded it, Velnari Marines in powered armor, sensor drones and 2 dreadnoughts hovering in high orbit, weapons charged. Maya and Jalen stepped onto the ship's outer hull through an airlock patched into a service bay. The moment they crossed the threshold, the interior lights flickered on, dim, yellow, but steady. The air was cold and stale, smelling of metal, oil, and something faintly chemical. "It's been sealed for a long time," Maya murmured, her breath fogging in the chill. They moved through narrow corridors lined with locked bulkheads. Everything was labeled in Old English. Some words faded, others scratched out. Maya ran her fingers over a wall panel. This ship wasn't built for comfort. It was built to last. In the command center, they found the bridge. It was small, cramped, filled with analog dials and digital screens that glowed faintly. At the center sat a command chair, its leather cracked with age. On the main display, a single line of text blinked slowly. "System standby, awaiting command." Maya plugged her datapad into a port beneath the console. After a few tense seconds, the screen changed. Log entries began scrolling, dated over 200 years ago. "Project Ironclad," Maya read aloud, her voice hushed. "Final launch, March 14th, 2147. Mission, Deep space deterrence. Objective, patrol outer Sol perimeter. Engage hostiles only if Earth is threatened. Jalen frowned. That was during the resource wars. Earth was tearing itself apart. Why send a warship into deep space then? Because they were scared, Maya said softly. Not of each other, but of what might be out here. She dug deeper. The log spoke of experimental fusion cores, railgun batteries capable of piercing asteroid belts, and an AI core named HELM, Human Emergency Logic Matrix. The ship had been launched with a skeleton crew of 12 all-volunteers. Their last transmission, sent just before they crossed the Kuiper Belt, was simple. We go silent now. If you hear from us again, it means the sky is burning, then nothing. For over 2 centuries, but the ship hadn't died. Its AI had kept it running on minimal power, drifting, waiting. And somehow it had ended up here, far beyond where any human ship should be. Suddenly, a voice crackled from a speaker overhead. It was rough, glitching, but unmistakably human. Identify. Maya froze. Jalen stepped forward. This is Jalen Briggs, human. We mean no harm. A pause. Then voice print. Not in registry. Biometric scan required. A panel on the console lit up. Maya placed her hand on it. A red beam swept over her palm. Seconds passed. Then the voice spoke again, clearer now. Biometric match. Homo sapiens. Earth origin confirmed. Welcome aboard UN's Resolute. The main screen shifted. A map appeared, showing not just the local system, but dozens of faint signals scattered across the galaxy. Each one pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. What are those? Jalen asked. Maya's eyes widened. Other ironclad ships. They're all out there, sleeping. Before they could process this, alarms blared on the Velnari comms channel. Zira's voice cut through, sharp with panic. Briggs, Ruiz. Get out now. The Cathar are coming. Jalen spun toward the door. Who? The Cathar hegemony, Maya said, her face pale. They're the Dominion's worst enemy. If they've detected the Resolute's power signature, she didn't need to finish. The Cathar didn't negotiate. They consumed. Entire civilizations had been erased by their biomechanical fleets, ships that grew like tumors, weapons that injected corrosive spores into hulls, turning metal to rot. On the view screen, dots appeared at the edge of the system. Dozens, then hundreds, swarming like insects. Back on Xylos Prime, the conclave erupted. Some called for retreat. Others demanded the Resolute be destroyed before the Cathar could claim it. But Korvek stood firm. If that ship can fight, we must give it a chance. He ordered the Dominion fleet to form a defensive ring around the moon. But everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. The Cathar armada outnumbered them 3-1. Inside the Resolute, Maya worked frantically. The AI says the weapons are functional but locked. It needs a human command to activate. Then give it one, Jalen said. I can't just say fire. There are protocols, safeties, Maya, Jalen said, looking her in the eyes. They're coming to kill us all. This ship was built for this moment. Let it do its job. She took a deep breath. Then she placed both hands on the console. Helm, this is Maya Ruiz, authorization code Ironclad Echo 9. Activate primary defense systems. Target lead Cathar vessel. Fire when ready. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ship groaned. A deep, metallic sound like a giant waking from sleep. Lights blazed to full brightness. Power surged through the hull. Outside, the Resolute's main railgun turret rotated slowly, its barrel glowing with stored energy. On the bridge of the lead Cathar vessel, the commander, a hulking creature fused with living metal, sensed the shift. What is that energy spike? It hissed. Before anyone could answer, a beam of superheated tungsten shot across space. It struck the Cathar flagship dead center. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but brilliant. A white-hot bloom that vaporized the ship in an instant. The rest of the Cathar fleet faltered. Confusion rippled through their formation. No one had ever destroyed one of their flagships with a single shot. In the Resolute's bridge, Maya stared at the screen, trembling. Jalen put a hand on her shoulder. You did it, but Maya wasn't looking at the wreckage. She was looking at the map. The other ironclad signals, 3 of them, had just brightened slightly, as if responding to the Resolute's activation. Somewhere out there, more Guardians were stirring, and the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, felt afraid of humanity. The silence after the explosion was heavier than the void itself. The Cathar fleet hung motionless for a full minute, their biomechanical ships twitching like wounded insects. Then as one, they turned and fled, vanishing into warp with a ripple of distorted space. The Dominion fleet, battered but intact, did not pursue. No one dared. All eyes were on the Resolute, still floating calmly near the dead moon, its railgun cooling in the dark. Back on Xylos Prime, the mood had shifted. Fear had turned to awe, and awe to something deeper, doubt. The Velnari had spent generations believing humanity was primitive, fractured, harmless. Now a single human warship had done what their entire border fleet could not: break the Cathar in one shot. In the high conclave chamber, voices that once called for destruction now spoke of alliance. Others whispered of betrayal. How could humans hide such power for so long? Jalen and Maya were brought back under heavy guard, not as prisoners, but as something new: symbols. They were given quarters in the Citadel of Voices, a tower reserved for honored guests or dangerous assets. Food was brought, clean clothes offered, but no one spoke to them directly. They were watched, studied, weighed. 2 days passed. Then Commander Corvex came himself. He stood in the doorway, his posture stiff, his eyes unreadable. "The Conclave wishes to speak with you," he said. "Not as liaisons. As representatives." Maya exchanged a glance with Jalen. "Representatives of what?" "Of Earth," Cor said simply. "Whether you like it or not." They were led through gleaming halls to a circular chamber where the Conclave sat in tiered seats of polished stone. At the center stood a holographic display of the Resolute, rotating slowly. Elder Vexra, the oldest of the council, spoke first. Her voice was thin but sharp. "You claim this ship was built centuries ago, that Earth knew nothing of its current location. Yet it appears now armed and ready, just as the Cathar threaten our borders." "Explain." Maya stepped forward. "We didn't send it. We didn't even know it still existed. Project Ironclad was a last-ditch effort during Earth's darkest time. The ships were launched into deep space to act as silent guardians. If Earth was ever truly in danger, they would wake up and fight." "That's all? And the other signals?" another elder asked. "The ones your console showed. Are there more of these?" "Guardians?" Maya hesitated. "There were plans for dozens. How many survived, I don't know. But if the Resolute responded to a threat, others might have too." A murmur ran through the chamber. Corvex raised a claw for silence. "Then the Cathar will return. They do not forget humiliation. And now they know Earth is not defenseless." Jalen spoke for the first time. "Earth isn't planning war. We've been quiet for 200 years. We just want to be left alone." "But you are not alone anymore," Vexra said. "Your silence is broken, and the galaxy has heard." That night, alarms blared across Xylos Prime, not from the sky but from deep space. The Cathar had returned, not with a raiding party but with a full invasion force. And they were not alone. Rogue Velnari warlords, those who saw humanity as a threat to their power, had joined them. Together they formed a coalition of steel and spore, aimed not at the Dominion but at Sol itself. "They think Earth is weak," Cor told Jalen and Maya in a secure war room. "They believe the Resolute was a fluke, that if they strike fast they can crush your world before more ships awaken." Maya's hands clenched. "They don't understand. Earth isn't what they think." "Then show them," Cor said. "You must return to the Resolute. Not to fight here, but to send a signal. Wake the others." It was a desperate plan. The Resolute's long-range beacon could broadcast a coded pulse, one only other ironclad ships would recognize. But to do it, they needed to bypass layers of safety protocols designed to prevent accidental activation. And they had less than 12 hours before the enemy fleet jumped into Sol space. Jalen and Maya boarded a fast courier ship, escorted by 3 Velnari destroyers. As they approached the Resolute, the warship powered up again as if it remembered them. Inside, the AI greeted them with a calm voice. "Welcome back. Threat level, critical. Recommend immediate action." Maya worked at the console, fingers flying over keys. She entered command codes from old Earth archives, cross-referenced with fragments of ironclad protocol she'd pieced together from the logs. Jalen monitored external sensors. The enemy fleet was massing at the edge of the system. "They would jump soon. Almost there," Maya muttered. "Just need to override the final lock." A warning flashed on screen. "Unauthorized activation may trigger full combat mode. Confirm?" She looked at Jalen. He nodded. She pressed enter. A deep hum filled the ship. Then from the Resolute's dorsal array, a pulse of energy shot outward. Not visible, not loud, but powerful. It raced through subspace carrying a single message in a language only machines built on Earth would understand. Awaken. Defend. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then on the star map, 3 distant dots flared brightly, one near the Cygnus Rift, one in the ruins of the old trade belt, one just beyond Neptune's orbit. They were answering. Back on Xylos Prime, Kor watched the data stream. "They're coming," he said softly, but time was running out. The enemy fleet initiated its jump sequence. In Sol System, Earth's defenses were minimal: old orbital stations, a few patrol cutters, nothing that could stand against a combined armada. Yet as the first Cathar ships tore through the fabric of space near Mars, they did not find a helpless planet. They found a wall of steel. 5 ironclad-class warships hung in perfect formation around Earth, silent, scarred, ancient. At their center floated the Yun's Vanguard, larger than the Resolute, its hull lined with weapon ports that glowed like angry eyes. No human voices came over the comms. No warnings, just a single automated broadcast repeating in every known language, "Leave. Now." The Cathar commander laughed, a wet, gurgling sound, and ordered the attack. It lasted less than 7 minutes. Railgun slugs tore through biohulls like paper. Plasma lances melted spore cannons into slag. One by one, the enemy ships exploded or fled. The rogue Velnari turned tail the moment they saw the Vanguard's main cannon charge, a weapon rumored to crack planets. When it was over, Earth's sky was clear. On Xylos Prime, the conclave fell silent. The message was clear. Humanity did not need allies to survive, but they had shown mercy. They had not chased the survivors. They had not struck back at the Dominion. Jalen and Maya stood on the observation deck watching the stars. "They'll never underestimate us again," Maya said. "No," Jalen replied. "But we didn't do this to scare them. We did it because we had to." Far away in the cold dark between stars, more ironclad ships drifted, waiting, watching, ready. The galaxy had shaken once. It would not shake again lightly. And somewhere deep in the heart of the Resolute, the AI whispered to itself, "Mission status, active." In the weeks after the battle near Earth, the galaxy held its breath. No one attacked. No one even sent a probe too close to Sol space. The Cathar hegemony vanished into the dark folds of the outer rim, licking their wounds and whispering new fears in their guttural tongue. The rogue Velnari warlords who had joined them were hunted down by loyal Dominion forces, punished not for betrayal, but for stupidity. They had poked a sleeping dragon, and the dragon had not even opened its eyes fully. On Xylos Prime, life changed for Jalen and Maya. They were no longer guests. They were something else, ambassadors without a government, voices for a world that had not asked them to speak. The Dominion built them new quarters, not in the Citadel of Voices, but in a quiet wing near the orbital docks, where they could see the stars without glass between them. Guards still watched, but now they stood at a distance almost respectfully. Maya spent her days studying the data from the Resolute. She had copied everything, the logs, the schematics, the AI core's memory banks. Piece by piece, she reconstructed the truth of Project Ironclad. It wasn't just about defense. It was about hope. The scientists and soldiers who built the ships knew Earth might fall into chaos, might even destroy itself. But they believed that if humanity survived, even in silence, the ironclad fleet would buy them time. A second chance. Jalen, meanwhile, walked the city streets alone. Velnari citizens would stop and stare as he passed. Some bowed their heads. Others whispered behind scaled hands. Children pointed and asked their parents, "Is that a human?" He never answered. He just kept walking, feeling the weight of a name he never chose, the face of a species that had just rewritten its place in the stars. Then came the summons, not from the Conclave, not from Core Vex. This message came from Earth. It arrived as a tight beam transmission encrypted with old military codes Maya barely recognized. She decrypted it in her room, hands shaking. The message was short. "Briggs, Ruiz, return if you can. Earth needs to know what happened out there, and we need to know what's still out there." There was no signature, just a timestamp and a priority flag marked eyes only, Project Oversight. Maya showed it to Jalen that night. "They know," she said, "about the ironclad ships. About the signal we sent, or they guessed, Jalen replied. Either way, they're asking for us. But leaving wasn't simple. The Dominion had grown dependent on their presence. Without them, the Velnari feared misunderstanding, another accidental war. Core Vex argued against their departure for 3 days. Finally, Elder Vexra intervened. Let them go, she said. If Earth calls its own, we must not stand in the way. But send a ship with them, not to spy, to listen. So it was decided. Jalen and Maya would return to Sol aboard the Dawn Chaser, now refitted with Dominion-grade shields and a diplomatic seal. Zira Vaughn would pilot it, her punishment, she joked, for surviving the first encounter with the Resolute. The journey took 10 days through quiet space. No patrols, no traders, even pirate clans had gone silent. The galaxy was watching. When they dropped out of warp near Neptune, they found the UN's vanguard waiting. It loomed like a mountain of black steel, its weapons powered down but ready. A voice crackled over comms, calm, synthetic, familiar. Identify vessel. This is the Velnari scout, Dawn Chaser, carrying human citizens Jalen Briggs and Maya Ruiz, Zira said carefully. We come in peace, a pause. Then biometric scan confirmed. Welcome home. The Vanguard parted its formation, allowing them passage. As they flew toward Earth, Jalen saw it for the first time in years. The blue-green marble wrapped in clouds, ringed by ancient orbital stations, and now, new defense platforms built from salvaged ironclad tech. But no cities burned. No armies marched. Earth looked peaceful. They landed at Geneva Spaceport, once a hub for global diplomacy, now the quiet heart of Earth's reclusive government. No crowds greeted them. No officials in suits. Just a single woman in a plain gray coat, standing alone on the tarmac. She was older, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too many winters. She didn't smile. She just nodded. Maya Ruiz, she said. Jalen Briggs. I'm Director Elena Marsh. I've been waiting. She led them to a secure bunker beneath the Alps where cold lights hummed and walls were lined with old monitors showing star maps. In a central chamber, a team of scientists and retired officers waited. None wore uniforms. All looked tired. You woke them, Elena said without preamble. The ironclad fleet. We felt the pulse. We saw the battle near Mars. We didn't think it would ever happen. Maya stepped forward. You knew about the ships? We maintained the archives, Elena said. But after the resource wars, Earth chose isolation. We buried Project Ironclad. We told ourselves the galaxy had forgotten us, that we were safe in our silence. And now? Jalen asked. Now the galaxy knows we're not silent, Elena said. And they're afraid. The Dominion sent us a message yesterday. They want to talk. Not as conquerors. As equals, she turned to a screen. It showed the 5 active ironclad ships, their positions marked in green. But we don't control them. The AIs do, and they answer only to threat levels, not to us. If someone provokes them again, they'll burn the stars, Maya finished. Elena nodded. So we have a choice. We can stay hidden and hope no one tests us again. Or we can step into the light and speak for ourselves before someone else speaks for us. She looked at Jalen and Maya. You've lived out there. You know how they see us. We need your help to decide what humanity becomes next. Jalen thought of the Velnari children who stared at him, of the Cathar ships turning to dust, of the Resolute, drifting alone for 200 years waiting for a call that almost never came. We don't have to be loud, he said slowly. But we can't be invisible anymore. Maya added, the ironclad ships aren't weapons. They're promises. Promises that we'll protect what we are. But we have to show the galaxy who we really are, not just what we can destroy. Elena smiled for the first time. Then we start talking. That night, from a quiet room deep in the mountain, Earth sent its first open transmission in over a century. Not a threat, not a warning, just words, spoken in simple English, translated into every major galactic language. This is Earth. We are still here. We wish to speak. Across the stars, the Dominion listened. The Cathar hesitated, and the ironclad fleet, silent once more, held its position. Guardians not of a weapon, but of a choice. And for the first time in generations, humanity chose to reach out, not with fire, but with a voice. The message from Earth traveled faster than any ship. It carried no weapons, no demands, only words, simple, clear, and calm. This is Earth, we are still here. We wish to speak. Across the galaxy, species that had long dismissed humanity as a footnote in cosmic history paused. The Velnari conclave replayed the transmission 3 times before Elder Vexra declared it genuine. The Cathar hegemony, still nursing their wounds, fell utterly silent. Even neutral trade worlds who had never cared about Earth began asking questions. On Xylos Prime, Jalen and Maya were summoned once more, not as outsiders but as bridges. They stood before the conclave not in borrowed uniforms but in simple Earth-made clothes, a quiet statement that they answered to their own world now. Corvex watched from the back of the chamber, his expression unreadable but his posture less rigid than before. Elder Vexra spoke first. You say you wish to talk, not fight. But your warships remain armed. Your AIs still guard your system like dragons over gold. How do we know this is not a trick? Maya stepped forward. Because we didn't chase your enemies after they ran. We didn't strike your worlds when we could have. The ironclad fleet exists to protect, not to conquer. If we wanted war, we would have started it long ago. Jalen added, we stayed silent because we were broken, not because we were weak. Now we're healing, and we'd rather build something than burn it. The conclave debated for 2 days. In the end, they agreed to open formal talks. Not treaties, not alliances, just conversation. A first step. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Director Elena Marsh coordinated with scientists, historians, and former diplomats, people who remembered how to listen as much as how to speak. They prepared data packets, not just about technology or defense, but about music, art, stories, food, the way humans laughed and mourned and dreamed. They sent these along with the next transmission. A quiet offering wrapped in light. The response surprised everyone. A small delegation from the Velnari arrived at the edge of Sol space, not in warships, but in a single unarmed vessel shaped like a folded leaf. Aboard was Corvex himself, accompanied by Zira Vaughn and 2 civilian scholars. They requested permission to visit Earth, not to inspect defenses, not to gather intelligence, to see a human city, to walk among ordinary people. Permission was granted. They landed in Kyoto, a city rebuilt after the old wars, where cherry trees still bloomed in spring and temples stood beside quiet streets. Corvex, who had commanded fleets and crushed rebellions, walked slowly through a garden, his claws brushing the petals of a flower. He said nothing for a long time. Then quietly, your world is soft. Maya, walking beside him, smiled. We used to think strength meant hardness. Now we know it means balance. That evening, over a meal of rice, fish, and tea served on simple ceramic plates, Kor asked a question no Velnari had ever asked before. Why did you not tell us you had the ironclad ships? Jalen answered. Because we were ashamed. We built them out of fear, not pride. And after the wars, we wanted to forget that fear, but forgetting almost got us killed. Kor nodded slowly. Fear is not weakness. Denying it is. The visit lasted 3 days. When the Velnari left, they carried more than data. They carried understanding. But not all corners of the galaxy welcomed peace. Deep in the Cathar hegemony, a faction of hardliners refused to accept Earth's rise. They believed the ironclad fleet was a bluff, that humanity was still fragile, that one strong push would shatter them. Led by Warlord Gorks, a creature fused with living metal and rage, they gathered what remained of their fleet and plotted a final strike. Not at Earth itself, but at the Resolute, still drifting near the old Dominion outpost. They believed if they could capture or destroy it, the myth of human power would crumble. They were wrong. Gorks's fleet jumped into the system under cloak, their bioships oozing corrosive mist as they closed in on the silent warship. But the Resolute was not alone. Hidden in the asteroid belt, the Yun Sentinel, another ironclad vessel, had been waiting. It had heard the pulse Maya sent weeks ago. It had come. Before the Cathar could fire a single spore, the Sentinel unleashed its main battery. 3 shots. 3 Cathar cruisers turned to vapor. The rest scattered, but the Resolute powered up, its railguns tracking them with cold precision. One by one, they fell. Gorks's command ship tried to flee. The Resolute locked on. A single message crackled over open comms, spoken in perfect Cathar dialect by the ship's AI. You were warned. Then silence. When the Dominion scouts arrived hours later, they found only wreckage. No survivors, no signals. just 2 human warships floating side by side, as if keeping watch over a graveyard. The message was clear to every power in the galaxy. Provoke Earth, and you vanish. After that, even the most stubborn warlords stayed away. Trade routes slowly reopened. Small human envoys began visiting neutral worlds, not with weapons, but with seeds, books, and recordings of children singing. The galaxy learned that humanity's strength was not just in its steel, but in its stories. Jalen and Maya returned to Earth for good. They were not made leaders or heroes in the old sense. They simply lived. Jalen teaching history at a university in Montreal. Maya working with engineers to help maintain peaceful contact with the ironclad AIs. They never gave interviews. They never sought fame. But when new species asked about Earth, the Velnari would say, "Speak to the humans gently. They do not shout. But when they answer, the stars listen." And far out in the dark, the ironclad fleet remained, silent, patient, ready. Not as weapons of war, but as guardians of a choice humanity had finally made, to be seen, to be known, and to stand tall without tearing others down. The galaxy had shaken once in fear. Now it settled into something new, not peace, not yet, but respect. And in the quiet hum of 1,000 worlds, one truth echoed louder than any engine. Humanity was here to stay.